Welcome back to the Badass Literature Society, where badasses come together to rate and review novels recommended by you. Hi, I'm Michael.
This is Barbara.
And I'm Lauren.
This month we read Legends Lattes by Travis Baldree. He is a New York Times bestselling author, obviously, of this book, and a prequel book called Bookshops and Bone Dust. He's also an audiobook narrator and an erstwhile game developer. For that, he has made the games Fate, Torchlight, and Rebel Galaxy, which I had no idea until I was putting this together, and I've played 2 of those 3 games. So that was kind of cool.
I don't know what those are.
That's fair. Barbara, do you want to tell us a little bit about the book itself?
Sure. This was originally published on February 20th. This is a lot. Twos. February 22nd of 2022.
22222.
Anyway, sorry. It's considered, I would say, is cozy fantasy, but whatever. Fantasy, romance, cozy. We'll just say cozy fantasy. It is 296 pages, currently has a 4.1 on Goodreads, 4.6 on Amazon, and a 4.7 on Audible. As of this podcast recording, it has been nominated for the Hugo Award for Best Novel in 2023, the Nebula Award for Best Novel in 2022, the Locus Award for First Novel in 2023, Audie Award for Fantasy in 2023, the Washington State Book Award for Fiction in 2023, the Goodreads Choice Award for Fantasy in 2022, and the Swoon Award for Fantasy Romance in 2022. We think it's important for readers to know what, if any, representation is in the books we read. So for this book, obviously it's a fantasy world with fantasy races, so kind of hard to say if there's representation as far as like that is concerned. But there are major LGBTQ plus characters and no characters with disabilities.
And Lauren, let's get the brief synopsis, please.
After a lifetime of bounties and bloodshed, Viv is hanging up her sword for the last time. The battle-weary orc aims to start fresh, opening the first ever coffee shop in the city of Thune. But old and new rivals stand in the way of success, not to mention the fact that no one has the faintest idea what coffee actually is. If Viv wants to put the blade behind her and make her plans a reality, she won't be able to go it alone. But the true rewards of the uncharted path are the travelers you meet along the way, and whether drawn together by ancient magic, flaky pastry, or a freshly brewed cup, they may become partners, family, and something deeper than she could ever have dreamed.
So, what did you think about Legends and Lattes? And remember, no spoilers.
This truly is a cozy fantasy. This is, I think, my first time reading a cozy fantasy, so I was intrigued to see what the heck that actually meant. And yes, it's a good palate cleanser, I feel like, for some like reading really heavy, either heavy fantasy books or just heavy topic books or anything like that. So it's quite nice to read something like that. There not a lot of high stakes, not a lot of trying to remember a bunch of stuff in a fantasy world that's very stereotypical of a fantasy world. So it was nice to just get a palate cleanser. I feel like I enjoyed it overall.
Yeah, I also enjoyed it. Definitely, it was also my first cozy fantasy. I've played, the genre of like cozy video game before, but never read a cozy book. But I really liked it. It was very low stakes, like Barbara said. It was a really fun story. I enjoyed all the characters. I enjoyed the fun, opening up a coffee shop in a fantasy world and all of that. It was really good. I enjoyed it a lot.
I enjoyed it as well. I think and I guess I'll talk about this in the next section about recommendations, but I feel like it was one that people would enjoy even if they don't enjoy super high fantasy type stuff. I think it had like enough, I guess, relatable themes to the everyday person, but like a fantastical twist. And yeah, it was just kind of a lighthearted for the most part. Obviously there were some parts that weren't, but yeah, I enjoyed it.
So we won't go into our individual ratings for now. Have to wait for that. But our group score for this one was a 9 out of 10. So would you recommend this book? I think it's a pretty safe yes for me. Even really to anybody. I mean, if somebody's nervous about fantasy or they're someone who's like been like how Lauren was at the beginning of this podcast, kind of, not necessarily anti-fantasy, but just that wasn't something she was ready to get involved in. I think this is an easy first read. I think really it's an easy read for anybody. It's an enjoyable story in a fantastical world. And I think honestly, it's pretty safe to recommend to anybody that enjoys reading a good book.
I agree. I also, like I said, I think it would be a good one to recommend to friends I have that aren't that into fantasy necessarily, but do enjoy kind of a feel-good book as a way to, like, I guess, dip their toe into the fantasy world and see if they like it. Though I wouldn't jump from like this to Brandon Sanderson, right? Like, I wouldn't want to be like, this is what a depiction of fantasy books are like, because it's definitely different. But it's pretty low stakes. It's not super complex. Like, there's not a lot of having to, I guess, decipher a lot of world building. Like, there's some world building, but like, it's not, it's very, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. The equivalent of user friendly, but for books. Like, palatable? I don't know.
Yeah,
Cozy.
I would say that.
Cozy, yeah. But you can have something that's cozy but also complex, I feel like.
Yeah.
That's true.
I don't know. I'll think of the word.
Yeah, I feel like if you recommend this to someone who's like a little timid about reading fantasy and then they go off and like read something like a non-cozy fantasy, they might be a little like distraught because you're kind of setting them up for failure. Because this is, yes, it's fantasy, but it's very, I mean, hence the cozy. Like, it's very low stakes. There's not a lot of world building to remember. Like, it's a very, just think of like a coffee shop book, beach read or something like that, but instead of like humans, you have orcs and fantastical creatures. That's it. Like, that's the difference. So it's not like you're trying to learn like a magic system or all of these crazy things. Like, you might pick up more on stuff in this world if you are familiar with fantasy tropes and stuff like that, because like they have that kind of stuff, but it's not needed. I think it's easy to recommend, like I said, for a palate cleanser type thing. It's a beach read for fantasy lovers. I think that's like the easiest way to recommend this would be like,
That's
do
a
you
really
like
good-
beach
yeah.
reads, like the romance stuff? Like, this is the fantasy version of that. There you go. So yeah,
That's a good description. Good comparison.
Yeah.
But Lauren and Barbara, I think you're both wrong. I think you approach your friend who doesn't like fantasy and you get them to read this. You buy them Legends and Lattes, and then they think, oh my God, that was so good. I liked it. I never thought I would. And then you show up with all 4 books in the Way of Kings series or Stormlight Archive series. So like 4,000 pages. Here you go. This is your next step into fantasy.
And then
And
you
then
no
watch
longer
them
have
cry.
friends.
Yeah.
And then you get ghosted by that friend and you never speak to them again.
Right. They're like, never taking a recommendation from you again.
Anyway, for those of you who are leaving us at this point because you haven't read the book and you want to, don't forget to give us a rating if you like our podcast. Make sure you're following us on both Facebook and Instagram. Our handle on both places is @BadassLitPod. We want to hear from you. If you've got a book you want us to read, please let us know. Now, for a short preview of our next episode. Next month, we are reading The Housemaid by Frida McFadden.
Welcome to the family, Nina Winchester says as I shake her elegant, manicured hand. I smile politely, gazing around the marble hallway. Working here is my last chance to start fresh. I can pretend to be whoever I like. But I'll soon learn that the Winchesters' secrets are far more dangerous than my own. Every day, I clean the Winchesters' beautiful house top to bottom. I collect their daughter from school, and I cook a delicious meal for the whole family before heading up to eat alone in my tiny room on the top floor. I try to ignore how Nina makes a mess just to watch me clean it up, how she tells strange lies about her own daughter, and how her husband Andrew seems more broken every day. But as I look into Andrew's handsome brown eyes, so full of pain, it's hard not to imagine what it would be like to live Nina's life. The walk-in closet, the fancy car, the perfect husband. I only try on one of Nina's pristine white dresses once, just to see what it's like. But she soon finds out, and by the time I realize my attic bedroom door only locks from the outside, it's far too late. But I assure myself, the Winchesters don't know who I really am. They don't know what I'm capable of.
Bum, bum, bum.
This was all over the place.
I will be
Yeah.
really curious to see Barbara's predictions as she reads this one.
Oh.
Because it is a
Interesting.
twisty one.
I was gonna say, I mean, it's all over the place. Like, it sounds like
This is like my cup of tea. I know, like it's like a psychological thriller, but it also, as you're reading it, at least for me, I had like at least 3 different predicted endings at any given time, because like it could go in many different directions, and so I really like a good book like that. So I will be curious to see your thoughts throughout.
I'll text you.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I will say, when I was putting this together and I read the first part of this like description, in my head all I'm thinking about, oh, okay, so the housekeeper for Dean and Sam Winchester from Supernatural. That'll be a great story.
I guess you have to watch the show to know that reference.
Apparently so. Hopefully a listener out there laughed with me.
I'm sorry, I've never watched Supernatural, so I don't know the reference.
I watched the first season, but I don't remember it. It's been a long time.
Well,
All right,
anyway,
Michael.
I'm so sorry.
remember the second part of this episode is an in-depth look at the book. So if you want to read it, stop listening now and come back when you're done.
My bulky blender was such a pain to use, I ended up hardly ever using it at all. But the BlendJet 2 portable blender makes blending so easy and convenient, I use it just about every day. BlendJet 2 is portable, so you can blend up a smoothie at work, a protein shake at the gym, or even a margarita at the beach. It's small enough to fit in a cup holder, but powerful enough to blast through tough ingredients like ice and frozen fruit with ease. BlendJet 2 is whisper quiet, so you can make your morning smoothie without waking up the whole house. It lasts for 15 plus blends and recharges quickly via USB-C. Best of all, BlendJet 2 cleans itself. Just blend water with a drop of soap and you're good to go. With over 30 plus colors and patterns to choose from, there's a BlendJet 2 to complement just about any style. I rock the ruby metallic print myself because I'm clearly a certified badass. What are you waiting for? Go to blendjet.com and grab yours today, and be sure to use the promo code BADALitPod12. That's BADALitPod12 to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. No other portable blender on the market comes close to the quality, power, and innovation of the BlendJet 2. They guarantee you'll love it or your money back. Blend anytime, anywhere with the BlendJet 2 portable blender. Go to blendjet.com and use the code BADALitPod12 to get 12% off your order and free 2-day shipping. Shop today and get the best deal ever.
Now, for those of you sticking around for the spoilers, here we go. So we're going to start off like we always start off the second half of the episode and figure out who we nominate and who wins the Badass Character Award. Barbara, who is your nominee?
I feel like I should say Viv, but I kind of just want to say Thimble because I love him. It doesn't make him a badass character. I just love him so much. Does that make him a badass? I mean, yeah, because he could make yummy food. So
He's not a badass, Barbara.
I know.
He's a cozy baker.
He is, and I loves him. I would burn the world for him. Let's see here. I guess Viv. I mean, stereotypically, maybe Tandri, just because like she has the ability to do stuff, but she doesn't. She chooses not to. I guess I don't know. Sure, Viv. I don't know. It's kind of hard to like Viv used to be a badass. Now she's just opening up a cozy coffee shop and still can be a badass, but has
it
back
can
pain.
Be, women entrepreneurs are badasses. Okay?
I know. I'm not saying that she's not, but Viv.
Michael asks Barbara, who is your nominee? Barbara responds, I nominate the entire cast of characters.
I did not. I just wanted Thimble. You said no.
No, you
if
said
you're
no.
nominee, you can nominate him.
You can nominate Thimble.
Thimble's a badass because he makes baked goods.
There you go.
One vote for Thimble.
One vote for Thimble. It's interesting because like Viv is definitely the stereotypical like badass nomination for this role because she's like the badass adventurer who chooses to open a coffee shop. But I think that my vote actually goes to Tandri because Tandri is a badass in all of the ways Viv can never imagine being. And what I mean by that is that like maybe she's not a stereotypical like, hero waving a sword, but she is the badass who is there to help the hero who is waving a sword kind of put things back together when life falls apart. So Tandri is my nominee.
So we either have 0 winners or 3 winners because my nomination was going to be Viv. So
I guess we have 3 winners then. I'm not going to ask you to change.
It's either 3 or none.
I said I would pick Tandri because of literally the same reasons Michael was saying. So if we must pick, there you go. Thimble wins it.
For the being a badass baker.
Congratulations, Thimble. No, I'm just kidding. Congratulations, Tandri. It sounds like is what we're agreeing on. Group consensus.
And the whole cast can get it. It's fine. It's fine. We'll get you some milky. What is it called? Milky
bean water.
Milky bean water. Yeah.
Let's be real. The award is arbitrary, and the points don't matter anyway.
So true.
That is true. So let's talk about these characters that we clearly all love a little bit more. Lauren, do you want to give us a brief lowdown on Viv?
Sure. So Viv is an orc woman who spent a lot of time traveling and adventuring and completing various badass quests. But then she decides she's done with that life and she wants to pursue something that is less traumatic, bloody. And she wants to open a coffee shop. And she decides that which is weird because she chooses a place where nobody even knows what coffee is. So then she's having to kind of like a bit of an uphill climb in addition to just starting a business, being able to get everybody to enjoy the milky bean water. And, she meets a bunch of random people and in lust, love, lust, love.
Lust? What?
No, I thought that was a good description of Viv. Barbara, would you like to give us the brief lowdown on Tandri?
Tandri is a succubus, but she hides or I wouldn't say hides the fact because of her tail and stuff like that, but like she doesn't use revealing clothes, and she tries to shy away from that aspect if you know anything about succubi. But she is an artist, extremely smart. I would say book and street smart. I think she's both, and she kind of keeps Viv in check and saying like, "Hey, like, don't ruin your dream of this by going back to your old habits and dealing with things how you used to do." She pretty much becomes Viv's token partner in the sense that like she pretty much helps her with all of the things, and then towards the end becomes an actual partner in the coffee shop, like owner with the rest of the crew, and is the romantic love interest of Viv at the end.
Yeah, that's a good description. Let's see. Next character that I will talk about is Calamity, which we mainly know as Cal. Cal is a carpenter and advisor and friend. He is a hob, which is I kind of thought of as like a hobbit-esque character, or a gnome, I think is what Barbara said earlier, like a smaller statured character. But Cal is one of the first people that Viv meets when she gets to this city, and she decides she likes his work ethic and hires him to help her make her coffee shop a reality from a, construction standpoint. And he ends up being a really good friend and a really close advisor. And it was a really interesting character, even though he was, as I said, like a very quiet, quiet advisor. He didn't say a lot, but what he did say was meaningful. And Barbara, you can now talk about your favorite character.
Thimble, my love. He is a baker, and he loves his bean juice water, and especially it's the frappe version of it. Frappe, is that how you say it? I call it frappe. The frappe version of it, and he's this savant when it comes to baking. Just think in a fantasy world where people don't know what chocolate is and don't know what like scones are and don't know what like that coffee cookie thing that you dip in. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I have no idea the wording of all of this stuff is, but like that's Thimble. He is a what is a rat something? I don't know his race.
He is a ratkin.
A ratkin, but I pictured him more of a mouse with like massive ears and all cutesy like. That's how I pictured him. But he literally doesn't really talk much at all. Kind of uses like gestures, and when he does talk, it's like kind of broken. And people like they originally thought it was hard to understand him, and then they kind of understand the symbolism of like how he speaks and how he gestures and stuff like that. But essentially, he is their master baker and makes all these yummy foods, and I love him. He's so great.
Did the author say if that was just like a thimble thing, or if it was just like that Ratkin didn't really communicate?
He didn't specify if that was just a thimble thing of not talking, or if it was the whole race that were like that, because we didn't meet another one of his kind.
Yeah. I guess I kind of assumed it was like the Ratkin thing, because when Viv and Tandri interact with them, they don't seem surprised by it. That's how he communicates when they first starts coming to the coffee shop. So
I feel like they were surprised that he did that, but I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, you're absolutely correct. He's a baking savant. It was an incredible character.
Yes, he was.
Last character we'll talk about here is Fennis. Fennis is the antagonist of the book, but we don't know that at first. So if you're still listening and you didn't want that to be spoiled, I am not sorry, because I told you and you were warned. But no, Fennis is an elf. He is a former member, I guess, of Viv's adventuring party from when she was out slaying beasts and doing quests before this book. But he ends up being a pretty bad guy. Viv has what was that thing called? I'm trying to remember now. It was the stone. What was the first? Scalvert stone that is believed to bring people together or bring you luck,
good fortune,
good fortune. And he knows that she has it, and he thinks that that's what's making her coffee shop so successful, and steals it and burns down the coffee shop, which is a lot about the bad guy. But he is a very bad person. He's written as a typical evil character. Lauren's throwing things in the chat that are making me laugh, and I apologize. But yeah, that's Fennis. We'll talk more about him later as we talk about some of the story. But we'll move into our discussion questions. So, how does the coffee shop serve as a hub for creating a sense of community? What role does the shop play in bringing together such a diverse group of characters?
Yes. It just, I guess, like most coffee shops, I guess, maybe, I don't know, brings people together. Like, Viv made a space where people can go in the mornings before work to grab the coffee and the baked goods and kind of meander a little. And then obviously in the afternoons at night, then there's music playing and all this stuff. So it's just kind of like a little, I don't think this town had a little community like this. It was just like bars, really. And you know how bars are, they can get rowdy and blah, blah, blah. But this was more of just like chit-chatting with people and hanging out and a sense of community for the actual town, I guess. What will bring it together? I don't know. It's the hub of where everyone could mingle without, like, I don't know. I don't know how to answer this. I'm just, yes.
So the coffee shop serves as a hub in the sense that, like what you said, it seems that in this town there's not really a gathering spot outside of like your traditional fantasy gathering spots like taverns and things like that, which are more of a nighttime thing. So Viv is opening up the first thing that's open throughout the day for people that are needing somewhere to gather and congregate to come. And so she opens it up in an area where there are lots of people coming by, and it's a brand new thing. Like Lauren said earlier, coffee in this fantasy world is something that is restricted to areas where like the gnomes and the dwarves are from and not really known about here in Thune. And so she's got
supposed to be a small town.
Thune is a big city.
Oh, okay. Then I totally misread that.
It's giving small town Hallmark vibes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I think it was like a modest, like, so not like a small town, but not like New York City either. Like it was, it would have been like a modest sized village, I guess. Is that the next step up from a town?
Oh,
maybe it's the other way around.
Smaller than town.
I thought village was smaller than town, but
yeah, agreed. I say village,
I don't
town,
know. It
city.
read like a cozy Hallmark town.
Yes, that's literally. I picture like big city boss lady goes into a small town and falls in love.
The problem with that is that there's like a mob boss, and that's not usually something that you find in a small cozy Hallmark town.
But this is a fantasy world.
I understand that. I envisioned this. Okay. It's more of a modest-sized city, the way it's described when she enters it and things like that. They've got like big gates. Anyway,
okay.
The shop plays a role in bringing together the group of characters. We learned eventually, which I kind of touched on earlier, that the Scalvert Stone, which everybody believes brings you gold and money, and that's why it gets stolen by the bad guy. But actually, what it really does, we learned from a wise old, maybe time-traveling gnome, is that...
Who's to know? It's never explained.
That the Scalvert Stone actually is probably what brought together this cast of characters that we learn to know and love, because it doesn't necessarily bring you good fortune in the sense it's going to make you money, but it brings you people around you that lets you create your own good fortune and good times. So I think that's what the coffee shop served. It was very much like a character in the story that was the central hub for everything that happens.
Yeah, I think the shop, like most modern coffee shops that you think about, or not, I guess most, like I'm not talking about like the Starbuckses of the world, but more so like the locally owned cute little coffee shops, serves as a gathering place for diverse people to come and mingle and hang out and get to know each other and host little, whatever situations, book clubs and things. I think of it like, those of you that have watched Friends, it's like everything is kind of, their hub is also a coffee shop. Like if you think about, and they've got live music and they've got pastries and coffee, and it's just a bringing people together situation. And so I think it's very relatable to the masses. And I think that was a good choice by the author if you're trying to appeal to like a wider range. It's not super niche like for fantasy. Like you're taking the fantastical elements and putting them in something that I think pretty much everyone can relate to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
For our listeners that are also indie gamers like me, it very much reminded me of the video game Coffee Talk, which takes place in a fantasy coffee shop that exists in Seattle. Very, very similar vibes to that.
That's a game that I might actually play.
It's really fun. We'll talk about that later, though. For those of you that know what it is, though, that's kind of the vibe I got from this. It's obviously just not modern times. It's medieval-esque fantasy time. But next question, Tandri, the succubus, becomes a critical part of Viv's team. How does her relationship with Viv evolve, and what do you think she represents in Viv's journey? So, gosh, that's a really open-ended question that I wrote. Tandri is absolutely a critical part of the team. She's the first employee that gets hired. So Viv gets there and is trying to set up shop. She's got Cal who's going to help her build, but she quickly realizes that she's going to need an employee to help her run this. And Tandri is the first one to respond to her want ad on the notice board. I think they start off as friends, and I think that, like Barbara mentioned earlier, that evolves into, some friends to lovers, perhaps. But it's a really interesting evolution because Viv, I think, simultaneously has this belief that because of the things that she's done in her past as an adventurer, she doesn't necessarily think that she deserves to be loved in the way that I think is blooming with her and Tandri. And then there's also the fact that Tandri is a succubus, and succubi be succubying, and so she's not really sure if
I love that.
Is that good? I'm glad you like that. She's not really sure if the feelings that she's starting to have for Tandri are real, or if they're somehow influenced by the fact that she is a succubus, and so there's that doubt at play also. And I really enjoyed their friendship and their relationship, and then eventually evolution to lovers at the end. It was a fun love story.
I feel like Barbara probably liked the love story because it was a slow burn and kind of a friends to lovers situation.
All the things of love, man. All the things.
Yes. So, I mean, I feel like Michael pretty much covered it. I think that I'm trying to think if there's anything critical that I would even add. I think, yeah, it's natural that she would question the love intentions of a succubus, and I think that probably contributed to the slower or more hesitation in the romantic part of it. I don't know. I enjoyed watching their relationship unfold, so to speak. And is there a sequel to this or no?
So as of now, no. There's a prequel to this called Bone Shops and Book Dust, but I don't believe there is a
But
sequel.
we have
I
no
knew that
idea.
there was a prequel, I knew there was a second book by the author with similar whatever, but I didn't know if we were gonna get to know how their story ends, or
We don't know yet.
TBD.
Is there not a novella or something? Like
There
a 0.5?
there's a 0.5 called Pages to Fill that is in my copy of the book, but it's a short story prequel, so it's still as opposed to Bookshops and Bone Dust takes place, I think, quite a bit earlier than Legends and Lattes, whereas Pages to Fill is like a little kind of like an additional prologue.
But it's not
to
the same
book.
characters then?
Pages to Fill is the same characters. I don't believe Bookshops and Bone Dust is. I was
see.
actually just pulling that up now to see.
Okay. I think we're
No, it is. It is the same characters. Anyway, but there's no sequel at this point to figure out what else happens afterwards.
So I think Viv planned the whole coffee shop as far as what it would look like, what she wanted to serve, all this stuff, but she didn't plan on how to market it. And that's where Tandri came in. She not only helped her serve the coffee and do all that stuff, but she was the marketing genius behind it all and how to get people into the shop, since Lauren mentioned, in this world or in this town, no one knew what coffee was. So it's how do you market something that people don't know? So it's she's the one who came up with the idea for all this. And then their relationship progresses because I feel like Tandri becomes Viv's confidant. The one that she turns to for whenever she's seeking advice for everything, how to run the coffee shop and what to do about the people who were trying to strong arm her about paying them and all this other stuff, and maybe we should add thimble for the baked goods and all this stuff. She's kind of the one who helps her run the shop and from the get-go, really. And then obviously, we talked about, yes, they have a slow burn romance. I think Viv was pretty blind when it came to obviously Tandri did have romantic feeling towards her, and Cal mentions it, a bunch of people are huh, interesting, and Viv was just oblivious to the fact, so it's okay, come on. So that was fun to watch, just the evolution of their relationship kind of go from acquaintances to friends to lovers. My jam. So yeah, liked it. No complaints.
No notes.
Except for more. I wanted more, but here we
Right.
are.
I was definitely gonna be talking about that a little bit later. And I looked up just for Lauren here. The Bookshops in Bone Dust takes place 20 years before.
So you
Legends
don't get any
Lattes.
real closure for any more
So
of their
Viv
story.
is in the story, but
it's pre.
But it's pre, 20 years before she opens up her coffee shop in this book. All right, next question. The novel is often described as low-stakes fantasy. How does this genre differ from traditional high-stakes fantasy, and did you find it refreshing?
I feel like I kind of talked about this earlier, but I feel like I found it refreshing just because there was a lot less complexities to keep track of than a typical high fantasy or even fantasy novel as far as world building goes, or like magic systems, or trying to keep all of that straight. I did have to Google some of like the various character races. Like I didn't know what an orc looked like, or like I'd only heard succubus used as like an insult, so I had to look up like some of the that type of stuff. But like it didn't require a whole lot of I guess for someone who doesn't read that stuff regularly. I feel like sometimes I have to do a lot of additional research almost, or reading, to kind of understand what's going on. So that was refreshing. There weren't a million side plots going on either to keep track of, which was helpful. It was overall just kind of like a feel-good read. And I did put here kind of what Barbara said earlier. I would typically call it more of a beach read, even though I do live in Kansas. But so a fantasy beach read.
Universal. You need a beach.
I still think that's a fantastic like analogy for this, is like the equivalent of like a beach read.
Oh, thank you.
A fantasy beach read.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've kind of touched base on this. It is low stakes fantasy in the sense that, normally all these other fantasy books we've read, like, you have to save the world. Like, there's no saving the world in this. Like, she's already done that. She's saved people, the place, the things, all that stuff. This is like after the fact, and she just wants to open a coffee shop and retire. Like that's kind of what this is. Since this is my first cozy fantasy, like, did I find it refreshing? Yeah, like I said, it was a really nice palate cleanser after reading a lot of high stake fantasy novels, or just high stake novels and like murder mysteries and all this other stuff. So it is kind of nice to pick this up and do that. I definitely needed this, especially at the time that we read this with everything going on. It was nice. And some people are like, oh, I just want to read a book and like turn off my brain and all this other stuff. And like, I get that. I don't think I've ever done that before. And I did that to a certain extent with this one. I was still trying to figure out like a few things, but it was a lot easier to do that with this book because of the way it's written. So I enjoyed that, and I think I definitely will be picking up more cozy fantasies whenever I feel like relaxing. There we go.
So for me, it's funny because like I had never, like, I obviously was familiar with like the cozy genre in video games, and I have played a lot of those, and they're exactly what Barbara described in this book did. Like that's what the game is. It's like the equivalent of playing Stardew Valley or like Call of Duty. Like they're dramatically different experiences. I had never thought about that though outside of that world, because I've never thought about cozy fantasy in a book. But it was exactly that. Like it was so like I don't know what to say, like turn your brain off, but kind of the same idea. Like you're able to just read it and enjoy it. You don't have to think too much about the plot points and the political machinations and the twists and the turns and all the stuff that I love when I read a high fantasy book. But it was so nice to just
welcome to just reading for relaxation, Michael.
I mean, I do read for relaxation, but like my brain is constantly like running.
There's only so much relaxing you can do though when you're like juggling all of the different like elements, and like somebody's saving the world and everything is on edge. Like it's more adrenaline inducing.
I don't think so. I think it's still relaxing.
It's relaxing in a different way.
Yeah. It's living this real world right now.
Yeah, it's relaxing in a different way. It's relaxing. So to keep going with video game metaphors for listeners and not for you two, it's relaxing in the same way that like I find like playing a Soulsborne game relaxing because I'm playing a video game, I'm relaxing. Those games are stressful as heck, but it's still relaxing because you're doing something you enjoy. And so I think that's the comparison here. Barbara's saying like she still is relaxed and reading these high stakes books, but this is a different kind of relaxing, and it was very refreshing. I really enjoyed it. I'm super excited to read the prequel and anything else that Travis is willing to write, as well as anything. I'm going to explore this genre some more because it's a
But is
genre I've
there
never really
thimble
dabbled
in
in.
it? Because if there's no thimble, I
Well,
will
so
not.
we know that Thimble's not in it because it's 20 years
Okay,
earlier, and they clearly
well,
just met in this book.
well, I don't know how I feel about this.
But
He was the star of the book.
you're probably not the only one who wants a direct sequel, so I'm sure it's something that the author is considering doing. But we will see. But yeah, let's move on to our next question. So Amity, the dire cat, becomes a mascot of sorts for the shop. What do you think Amity adds to the story and the atmosphere of the coffee shop?
So I feel like it's how do I like a guard dog. Like Amity is like a guard dog, you know? Like not only a mascot but a guard dog. Like it's a she, right? They mentioned her
I
as
think it's a she.
yeah,
Yes.
they mention her as a she. Like she just kind of appears and they're not quite sure how and when and where. She just is there and she is like their little protector of sorts. Like she's chill with people and then but it does remind me of like a dog who knows like okay, these people are good and these people are bad. So that's kind of how I pictured it, but whatever a dire cat is, I'm assuming like a massive maybe like cat like lion type thing size wise but not look wise. I'm not really sure. I'm not familiar with the dire cat. I don't know if this is made up for this fantasy world or if that's
I think it's made
a
up for this fantasy world.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. But that's kind of like how I pictured it, and I loved me some Amity as well because I thought it was funny that like she yelled or like she was a little protector of sorts for whenever they were having trouble at in the shop, and I think it was cute that they're like, "Oh, like good girl, we're gonna give you some like meats and num nums for being such a good girl." And they had like a little spot for her, but like she refused to use it, and then all of a sudden she started using it. It was kind of just really cute and just a fun character to have. And maybe the time traveler knew her. I don't know. That part was weird and it was never mentioned. And I'm like, what the heck is happening? But yes.
So I imagined you said like obviously dire cat's not a real thing. I imagined if you like take, I imagined our cat Barbara, but the size of a mountain lion. So like a large, like it looks like a house cat, but is not the size of a house cat. If that makes sense.
Did they say that she was large?
Yes,
Yes.
they did.
Yes.
Okay, I must
yes,
have
they
missed
did.
that.
And I think that she belongs to the mystical
Yeah.
dwarf that comes and plays chess with himself and is maybe time traveling. And I really want to know more about that character. But I think that there's some strong implications that the cat belongs to him and has kind of left the cat in the care of Viv and Tandry while he's out doing whatever he's doing. But I mean, Amity is definitely a mascot for the shop. And definitely has a lot of house cat behaviors, but is still massive and huge and can be a guard dog as well. So that was kind of a fun hybrid of like thinking about this guard cat that was rescuing or protecting the shop. Amity also plays a huge role in the when Faintest, the antagonist, comes and steals the Scalvert Stone and sets the coffee shop on fire with Viv inside it and Tandry inside it. Amity is the reason that they're able to get out safely because Amity wakes them and says, "No, come on, there's magical fire burning down the coffee shop." And so Amity plays a bigger role than most pets do in stories, I guess.
I don't know. You read about all the time these doggos be saving people's lives, and I was like, yes, doggos, yeah. So same thing.
Well, I guess in that, so it was fun to see a cat in that role that maybe is traditionally filled by another animal. But I really liked Amity. It was cool. Another cozy aspect that was very fun.
Yeah, I think and this is just a downfall of audiobooks. Somehow I missed that it was like a big cat. I just like was listening to it and distractedly listening and just kind of pictured like a normal, like a cat cafe cat. But then also it was funny to me, and now it's not funny, and it makes sense. Like how I'm picturing like Fujin, like your cat, like acting like a protective guard dog, but he's tiny. Like I don't know. So clearly, my mental picture was different than what was intended because I missed a key
Yeah.
a key
Could have
descriptor
said it
on
like
that.
she's imposing. I don't think it's, no offense to small cats, like they're
Yes,
not
yeah.
really imposing.
Yes. Well, I definitely was picturing and laughing about kind of like it sounded like, oh, she has like small dog syndrome, right? But it's like, you're not small, you're big. So never mind.
True that.
So I just Googled it because I was curious if like a dire cat is a thing. And apparently it exists, not in real life, but has been introduced in the Star Wars universe and like Star Wars comics back in the day. And the picture of it literally looks like a saber-toothed tiger. Like it's a very
When I Googled
alien
dire
looking
cat,
creature.
my Google said, did you mean DirecTV? So it's like, I don't think that it's a thing.
It is not a thing in real life. It apparently exists in Star Wars and Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. Next question. The magical Scalvert Stone plays a minor but intriguing role in the plot. What does it symbolize in Viv's story, and how do you interpret its significance? I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I guess I'll talk about it a little bit more now. So the Scalvert Stone, like I mentioned, is something that the opening of the book is Viv on her last adventure, and she is with her party. Her goal is to take down a Scalvert and get this stone. That's the only loot she wants. She doesn't care about anything else. She just wants the stone, not all the treasure and stuff that the Scalvert has hoarded. Scalvert Stone in this universe, mythically, is supposed to bring good fortune. A lot of people interpret that as that you will make lots of money. So since Viv's dream is to go to a city and open up a coffee shop, she thinks that this stone will help her succeed. And I think that's what it symbolizes for most of the story is this folkloric, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Superstition, that this item will bring her good luck. And obviously there's lots of things like that we have in our real society that people use to try to bring good luck. So she has it, and she, as they're building the coffee shop and, transitioning what was a stable and is now being turned into a coffee shop, she puts it underneath a stone in the middle of the shop with hopes that it will bring her good luck. All these great, fantastic things happen. The coffee shop becomes hugely successful. She has all these friends and this community that's being built around her that she's never had before. And she contributes all of that to the stone. So in that way, it plays a minor character or a minor role, but it's definitely a big thing for her. Because when Fennis does come and take the Scalvert Stone and burn down the coffee shop, she thinks that all of this is happening because the stone was taken. Because the other part of a superstition is if you lose the stone, then you get magic reciprocity, where you will, all the good things that happen because of the stone, you will now get an equal amount of bad things that happen afterwards. That's the superstition with these stones in this universe. And so she thinks all of these bad things are happening now because Fennis has taken the stone. And she comes to find out, obviously, that the stone was more about bringing this community together and less about literally bringing together, making her successful and making her money. It was about being rich in other things in life. And maybe she doesn't need the stone to have that happen. But that's my long-winded answer to this question about the Scalvert Stone.
Yeah, I kind of interpreted it similarly. Just it reminded me of like when I was in Ireland and like the whole Blarney Stone thing, where people like really superstitious people really believe they're superstitious things. So that's kind of, I mean, I don't know that I would have much to add to what you said, Michael, because you did a pretty good summary. But I pictured it like, yeah, people will like kiss the stone in Ireland and be like, oh, that's why I fell in love. And it's like, actually, no, but coincidences are fun. I don't know how superstitious you guys are, but yeah.
I feel like it symbolized all of Viv's geez, that's a blah, blah word for me to try to say. Viv's hopes and dreams. Like, she had this little stone and she was like, this is what's going to give me everything I want. And I feel like she put all her eggs in the basket in the sense of like, this is why it did well. But like, truly, the book just said it's the friends along the way that we've made. That truly was.
Yes.
That truly was what that was, and not the stone at all. And then that was the lesson she learned, and that's pretty much what the stone is.
All right, next question. The novel features many mouth-watering descriptions of food and drinks. How did these details enhance your connection to the story and setting?
I feel like I always love it when I'm reading and an author can actually paint a descriptive picture that causes me to be able to like imagine tasting or feeling or seeing something. It enhances the connection to the setting for sure. just because it makes it easier to picture it, and I feel like you feel like you're actually partaking with the characters, or that you're able to, I don't know, get like a sensory, you have like a more of a sensory experience. And so now I do think that there are novels I've read that I can't think of the names of at the moment, where like authors will overly describe everything, and then it gets like
Stephen King.
very annoying because it's like, okay, I don't need like, and you can just say the brown dog. It doesn't like, it doesn't need to be like the scruffy, curly, wickery brown dog, like, but I think that the author in this case did a really good job, and it definitely added to the whole cozy experience for me.
So I agree. I think it fits in this setting. Like, not all books should have this big of description for stuff, but I enjoy if we are in a setting where we are talking about food, particularly food. Not really. I'm not a huge drink person, so that take it or leave it type thing. But food, and you don't do a good enough description of the food, that I feel a little cheated, because like, if we're talking about food, I want to know. I want to be able to picture it and maybe like imagine what it would taste like and all this stuff. And obviously, the way he described it in this book is like these new like the first one was a cinnamon roll, but like we as readers for the most part in America know what a cinnamon roll is. So it was interesting to see what a cinnamon roll was in this fantasy setting, like when you break it down to its core, like what is a cinnamon roll. So it's really cool to see that and be like, oh, okay, this is what it is. And like when he was describing the ingredients that he wanted for a flaky pastry with chocolate in it, I don't know what the actual term of what that would be, but it was interesting to be like, oh, okay, so these are the ingredients that you get, and this is how you get that in a fantasy setting, like that's chocolate. And it was just really neat to experience that. I really, really enjoy that aspect of the book. I don't want this in all of my books, like maybe in a normal fantasy world where we're just eating nasty like chicken legs or something like that. Like, no, thank you. I think I'm good. But in this type of set, I feel like it enhanced the mood and enhanced the cozy setting and all this stuff. And I think it would have been a disservice had he not done that for this. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
I think you guys really hit the nail on the head with this one. Like Barbara just said, I don't think I'd want this kind of description in every single book that I read, but in this book, the way that the food was described was so detailed and so well done that there are multiple times where Barbara and I'd be like, gosh, I want a chocolate croissant now, or I want a cinnamon roll because it just sounds so good. I wish I could eat this off the page. And it was a combination of that and how well the author described and talked about the characters in the stories, like visceral reactions to these new foods, that was just, it was really well done. And it was perfect for a cozy fantasy. And it was a very enjoyable aspect of the book. I agree with both of you on that. Next question. How does Viv's past as an adventurer influence her approach to running the coffee shop? Do you think she finds closure from her previous life?
Maybe, like I mentioned earlier, it was more of like she was the planner of the group. At least that's what it kind of seemed like to me. So like she would always have like, okay, here is plan A, B, and C. This is how we're gonna go in. This is what we're gonna do. This is like how we're going to either like kill the monster or save the person or like whatever in her adventuring would do. And that's how she started with the coffee shop. She's like, okay, like these are the things I need to run a coffee shop. This is what I need to build a coffee shop. This is what I want to look like. But she didn't think outside of that, like aesthetically, after like how to decorate it to make it more appealing to everyone, or like how to put the prices up, like what are we gonna know, like what people are served, like what we're serving them and all this stuff. She didn't think about the marketing aspect of it. So that influence, in the sense, like it was very I want to say like type A, what's another way, like very black and white, like here's step A, B, and C of how to get this done. But like she needed that other aspect of like left versus right brain type thing, where it's like, okay, like now how do we sell this, because she had no idea. Did she find closure for, yeah, and I think Tandry really helped her with that, because like she kept trying to fall into bad habits of being like, okay, this is how I deal with a problem. I just intimidate them. I'm not paying them. I'm going to kind of strong arm them into like not doing this. And Tandry was like, hey, like hold on, like that's how you used to do it previously, but like now you have a lot more to think about. Like you have the coffee shop and like other things that you have to worry about. You can't just be like beat your chest and be like, okay, this is how I'm going to get rid of this problem. And I think she, at the end of the book, she finally was able to, I think, fully let go of her past with the help of like everyone around her.
That was a really good answer. I think that just to add to this, one of my favorite parts of the book was reading like the internal monologue that's going on with Viv when she wants so badly to deal with problems the way she used to as an adventurer, and she wants to grab that sword off the wall, and she wants to go, well, in the case I'm thinking of, she wants to go kill the person that's trying to, extort money from the coffee shop. And it was cool to have that both that internal monologue of her saying like, no, this is not how you do this now. This is not how we do this now. We're different. And also you get the external dialogue between Viv and Tandri talking about where Tandri was reminding her like, hey, you don't have to be that person anymore. You're not that person anymore. You are Viv, coffee shop owner of Legends and Lattes. And you do not need to take up that sword anymore. And so it was very cool to see that throughout the book and see the evolution of her character from adventurer and violence from the past to cozy coffee shop owner at the end of the book. As far as does she find closure from her previous life, I think that's hard to say. I think in some ways she finds a way to move on from that chapter to the next. I think that though I like that the author acknowledges that Viv, that will always be a part of Viv, which, is kind of physically symbolized at the end of the book when they put together the new sign after the fire and they've rebuilt and they incorporate the remains of her sword into the sign to say that, hey, you can embrace your past, but still move on and do something different in the present. And I thought that was a really cool way to wrap up and give some semblance of closure to that character.
Yeah, I mean, I think Barbara's answer was pretty conclusive. I don't know that I would really add much to this one. I think, her past as an adventurer, I think gives her certain, I guess, like just character traits that help her in being a badass entrepreneur and wanting to run the coffee shop. I think, though, also contrary to maybe the typical battler, adventurer vibes, like she finds that she needs to ask for help and like she can't entirely do it on her own strength and volition, I guess. And so I think that presents a good challenge for her. But as far as finding closure from her previous life, I think Barbara summarized it pretty well. I do wish though that like the other novel wasn't a prequel and that we did, maybe he'll write another, like even if it's just, I don't know, like a short, what happens next? Where are they now? I need like a reunion episode.
Like I don't like the like epilogue or something or like a thing that's like a week later. I was like, I don't care about a week later. We already know what happens a week later. Like give me like at least a year, if like, a year later, so then we know, because that's a
like,
lot of time.
The new coffee shop doing?
Right,
like,
exactly.
Are they still together? Like, was it actually love or was it just succubus lust? Like what comes next for this cozy Hallmark town that's actually a big, vibrant city?
Right.
It's funny because I do think it is more of like a big, vibrant city because in the prequel it's described as a like small beach town. Which makes
I believe you, but it definitely just reads as like a like I don't know. That's how it reads. Is just it's like a cozy little village kind of thing.
Oh, fair. Let's see. Next question. Viv's dreams of running a coffee shop is modest compared to her grand quests of her adventuring past. What does this say about the value of small dreams, quote unquote, small dreams, and their impact? So I think that I don't think that Viv's dreams to have a coffee shop are small. Number one, I think that the idea that a lot of people have is that, that is a small dream compared to like these grandiose dreams of going out and adventuring and seeking glory and slaying the dragon and all the traditional fantasy stuff. But I think that one of like the key takeaways of this novel is that it's not a small dream. I think opening the coffee shop and settling down are kind of Viv's big dream. Like she's done what she needs to do to get to this point in her life. And I think it's a very important story to tell that like, your big dream can be opening a coffee shop. It doesn't have to be, playing professional football to give a modern times comparison. I feel like of being in a successful adventure or working for a mercenary company. So that's my thought on that question.
Yeah, I agree. When I read the question, like I was like, what do you mean small dream? It's a different dream. It's not I mean, that would be like saying that, I mean, I guess this wouldn't necessarily be a perfect comparison, but like somebody who wants to go into the military and wants to like physically fight battles, right? Or wants to, you seek that out and that's what you want to do because you're passionate about it. But like that doesn't necessarily mean that a female entrepreneur who wants to open a coffee shop and provide like meet needs for the community and serve people in a different way, I don't feel like that makes it any lesser of a dream. I know different societies place different values on different things, but I feel like obviously she's done both at this point. So maybe she's viewing it as a smaller dream. I don't know. But I think coffee shops and the communities that they create and the diversity that they represent and things like that can be equally as life-changing as the dragon slaying dramatic quest type pursuits. But maybe that's just my liberal art school speaking. I don't know.
That's fine. I think we all feel the same way. I don't personally think there is such a thing as quote unquote big or small dreams. They're just dreams. Like it does, like dreams are dreams. It doesn't matter if you think the magnitude of the dream is. You shouldn't be comparing your dream to other people's dreams, and you shouldn't be like, oh, like my dream seems so small compared to that person's, or even to your own other ones that you've done previously or have thought of and stuff. Like you should just have your dream and have it. Like you shouldn't think of it as small or big or any of that.
Well, and what's small to one person, it could be huge to another. Like
right,
one
exactly.
person that
Like
goes to college because their parents have paid for all of their siblings to go to college, and that's just what's expected in that family. Like, wouldn't see that as like a huge, big dream, but somebody who, didn't get that opportunity, like that is a big dream. And so, who are we to say what's big and what's
right.
small?
Like I feel like calling dreams small versus big is a privilege. It comes from a place of privilege for that because I don't personally see it that way. I think it's just a dream and you should value it regardless of what external internal thoughts are coming in. As far as I guess answering this question, I don't think it's a modest dream because obviously maybe this is what she always wanted to do versus the adventuring past. So maybe this is her big dream and the other one is the small dream to get the money to be able to do what you want. And I feel like that's pretty standard, you know. So I don't know. I really don't know how to answer this because I don't agree with this question, but I think that was her overall plan after she realized, maybe this life isn't for me and she changed her mind. And that's completely acceptable. And I love that for everyone. You're never too old to have a new dream, a new aspect, or whatever the case is. So I guess that's how I'm answering that.
That's a good answer. All right, our final question. What were your overall impressions of the story? And would you want to visit Viv's coffee shop if it existed in real life?
I really enjoyed the story. I like the characters. I enjoyed the feel good vibes, the low stakes fantasy or whatever we're calling it. And I would most definitely visit the coffee shop if it existed in real life. I think I might be intimidated now that I know that the cute coffee shop cat is actually like a giant cat. But I would visit for Thimble alone, just to see the adorable, awesome mouse baker guy.
Traveling human mauled by dire cat.
Right? That would be my headline. I have definitely also been calling my morning coffee Milky Bean water and getting hilarious looks from my husband. So my overall impressions, I think, were positive ones. I enjoyed, and I think I will seek out, assuming there are an abundance of other options in this category for like cozy fantasy stuff. I'll explore that genre more because I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I overall impressions. I really enjoyed it. It was nice. I have no complaints about it. Well, actually, I do. I do have one complaint. I lied.
Just kidding. Here's your
The only issue I had with it was like I feel like it built up, and then it's like coffee shop burned down, build it up quick, fast, boom. Like I feel like towards the end it felt like to me it was a bit rushed. Like we are trying to resolve all of these issues that we still had to resolve, and it felt a little rushed. Like I would have been completely content if this book was a little bit like longer. I knew coming into this was low stakes. I knew coming in that there wasn't going to be like haba and hablu in your face and all this other stuff. Like I was in it for the character growth, the character arcs, not much of a plot as far as like stake wise. Like obviously like open coffee shop burned down, reopen. Like that was the plot.
So do you think they had like a page count limit? Like, because I felt like it was maybe a little rushed at the end too. So I was wondering if maybe it's like, oh, in this genre, it's only like people only will read it or pick it up if it's certain length.
So I don't know about genre. I do know by publisher that they do kind of want to kind of pigeonhole you in word count. So not necessarily page count, it's a word count thing. So I know I've listened to other authors speaking like where they're saying like, yeah, I had to really condense this word count. This is what they wanted or stuff like that. So but I have no idea about him, and maybe he just chose this like cuz maybe he didn't think in the cozy fantasy people wanted to read anything over like 350 pages or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not super familiar with the cozy fantasy. I definitely will be dipping my feet in that and definitely kind of want to open or grab more of these books and stuff like that and have more to read. Definitely will be researching that and seeing if there's more out there, which I'm assuming. I feel like it's a fairly newer trend, maybe within the last I don't know 3 years or something like that. I feel like these have kind of cropped up, so I definitely kind of want to check it out. So I don't know about that, but I definitely, that was my only issue, is I felt like it was really rushed towards the end, and I wanted to spend a little bit more with these characters. And I get it, because it's like it still follows the fantasy, or like really any book. Like you have the build up, you have the climax, and then you have like the ending, you know. But I kind of wanted to spend a little bit more with the characters after the fact, and I would have been completely content reading that. I don't think I would have complained, but I don't know, maybe other people would, and that's why he did that.
You needed a cuddle after the climax.
I did. I got you. Took me a second. But yes, actually, I did. I wanted more. I wanted a cuddly. I didn't want to just like, roll over and just go to bed. Anyways.
Sorry,
would I visit the coffee shop? Yes, for the baked good alone, and obviously to meet the characters, I would love to meet them. As far as like coffee, I'm not a huge. It's not even a huge. I don't drink coffee personally, but like if they had hot cocoa for the winter months, I am so down. I am one of those adult cocoa drinkers. Yes, that is me.
Would you drink coffee if Thimble made it special just for you?
If he put chocolate in it and masked the taste of coffee, yes. And then I would just like stuff my face with all the nummy bakery goods that he would make me. Probably.
You'd have like a pastry chaser.
Right. I mean, that's normally what I do. Like if I don't like the drink that I am currently drinking, I will never tell the person or wherever. So what I do is normally I try to eat something with it. So I shove the like food in my mouth and then take a gulp, like a massive gulp, to just get rid of that. So it's just quick and down. And I do that a lot. I'm used to doing that, so I'm okay with doing that. So I would for him. Anything for Thimble.
Anything for Thimble.
It reminds me of that meme. It's like from what is that cop show that has the dude from SNL. That's a funny comedian. Like, why I can't think of the name. No,
I can't.
You know what I'm talking about? That has the girl from Encanto. That character is who I'm specifically thinking of, and I think his girlfriend and later out turns to be wife is like, her name is Amy.
Oh yeah. You're talking about it's the Andy Samberg show.
Yes, I don't know.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yes, that show where the lady from Encanto gets the little dog, and she's like, I know I just met this dog 5 minutes ago, but if anything were to happen to him, I would kill everyone and then myself. That's how I feel about Thimble. That's all I was trying to get at. It was a whole thing.
So yeah, I mean, my overall impressions of the story, I loved it, obviously. My only criticism would have just been I wanted more. This book could have been 3 times as long, and I would have still read it and loved it and enjoyed it. since you were talking about earlier, like maybe publishing this, he originally self-published this book. I read a blog post that he put up about it when I was putting stuff together for this episode, and it's kind of interesting. So he self-published it, and then like a few months later, Tor reached out and was like, "No, we want to like traditionally publish the book." So it started out as just self-published, and then became more than that.
Why
When it was
he had a
successful.
limit because it was Bethany who was saying like, oh, you have to literally do everything. So you're thinking of like page, paper, and material, and that's really expensive. So he probably had to keep it kind of smaller to be able to afford to do this. And then by the time Tor said yes, we'll take it, like you can't probably change the length of the book.
I mean, because at that point, Tor's taking it because it's successful as a self-published book, and
exactly.
Right. I mean, he did add the little novella prequel.
We don't want a prequel. We want an epilogue.
Hopefully, we'll get a sequel. I would read one in a heartbeat. I'm excited to read the prequel though too. But yeah, and to answer the second question before we move on to the end, yes, I would absolutely visit Viv's coffee shop. I love coffee. I love coffee shops. Like Barbara said, I'd also love to meet the characters of the book too. That would be.
I love
awesome.
coffee shops too. I'm just like that weird wizard kid who won't drink the damn coffee. But like, I will eat the food, the crap out of the food. I will eat that. And give me a hot cocoa. That's fine. We're good.
I'll be an eyewitness for the statement about Lauren being mauled by the dire cat too.
Fair enough.
But let's wrap this baby up. So, individual scoring for this one. Barbara, what was yours?
An 8. And like I said, my complaint is just because I wanted more. It was not long enough and I wanted more of it. So
fair.
Solid 8.
I give it a 9. I loved it, and like as my only criticism was that I wanted more, and I feel like that's not a criticism at the end of a book when you're like, no, I want more. But there were a lot of threads that were left the author can go back and pull on, and I really hope that he does, because there's lots of things in this world that he just like touched on a little bit, and it feels like anyway from reading it that in creating this story he created a much larger world that he knows about that we don't know all about yet, and I hope that's the case and we get more of it going forward.
Yes, I agree. I also would read a sequel if he writes one, or even just a different cozy vibes fantasy.
Yeah, like different characters.
Like whatever.
Yeah, I would be down for that too.
I originally gave it an 8, but I decided to bump it up to a 9.
I was gonna say, I was so confused. I was like, I could have sworn. And after going through this, I kind of agree with you. I think I kind of want to change my score into a 9. I changed
mine before we got here because
we're gonna have to redo this.
Okay, we can redo it.
Just
but
9.
You don't have to redo your
just
part.
9.
We can just,
it's
she can redo hers, and then she can stitch it back together.
It's fine. We'll just do this. You know what? I was regretting my life decisions as soon as I said this after going through this and being like, realistically speaking, the only issue I had with it was just not enough. And like, is that really a bad thing? Isn't that what you want? It's a good problem to have. Like, why did I rate it so low? Shoot.
I just realized as I was reading it, so I rated it an 8, but I think I also have a tendency to rate things like based on all of the books. So then I decided to think about it in the scope of like just fantasy books and also like this season, and I feel like I definitely it earned that for me. So
yeah, I was just thinking back, I was like, I feel like I really needed to read this with where my headspace was, and like I loved the characters, I liked the story, like it was easy read for me, quick, and all this stuff. Is like, why did I rate it so low? Like it was, I needed to read this at this time. Like, what the heck is wrong with me?
So with all of us giving it 9s, the overall group score is a 9.
I think this is the highest rated across the board that
I think this is unanimous where we all gave a book a 9. Like legitimately speaking, I do believe this is a unanimous one.
And I do want to throw this in there, mainly for the two of you, but also for our listeners. On Travis Baldree's Baldree, his Goodreads, somebody asked, I heard you have 3 more books coming from Tor. Are any of those books about our lovable orc Viv or her world? And he responded and said, at least one of them will. Although Viv isn't the main character, she does appear and is important to the story.
Oh.
Okay.
Tandri, I want more is it Thimble? We need more Thimble.
So it's not going to be a true sequel if Viv is not a main character. But Similar vibes.
But she is
maybe.
in the book and is important to the story. So
Okay, well, if
there's
it's Thimble or
that.
Tandry, we good. If not,
Maybe it's
I'm gonna throw
Thimble.
some hands.
Make sure you're following Badass Literature for free in your favorite podcast app. Give us a rating and leave us a review if they allow you to. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. Our handle on Instagram, Facebook, and now Goodreads is at Badass Lit Pod.
Have feedback about today's episode? You can contact us by writing to badassliteraturesociety@gmail.com. You can also send us a DM or leave a comment on all our social handles that Michael literally just read out to you.
As always, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. I'm Michael.
I'm Barbara.
I'm Lauren.
Bye.
Bye.
What was the question? Hold on. Just let me pause this real quick. Hold on. Let me reread this.
This is a fun one. Calamity the Dire Cat becomes a mascot of sorts for the shop. What do you think Calamity adds to the story and the atmosphere of the coffee shop?
Calamity isn't the dire cat.
That is the total wrong name that I wrote. So we're going to have to
Oh my
pause.
god.
We are going
What?
to